In this video, we will be going over every popular strategy / broken team that players are using in the early development of the Pokemon Champions metagame, answering questions like what is their game plan, what Pokemon to use, what are their weak points, and more. And make sure to tune in until the very end, as we will throw a useful resource for every trader aspiring to build a team capable of taking down even the very best. So without further ado, let's dive into our metagame analysis. Harsh sunlight. Starting off our list, we're going to discuss the VGC Sun strategy. For humans, the sun is a vital part of daily life and our main vitamin D resource. But in the Champions metagame, the sun is much more similar to the Super Mario Bros. 3 sun, where its main goal is to end your run quickly. Sun teams are centered around the Drought ability, which Torkoal and Mega Charizard Y possess. The idea behind a sun team is to set up weather and unleash devastating spread damage in the form of Mega Charizard Y's Heat Wave or Torkoal's Eruption. Such devastating attacks make it easy for other powerful teammates like Garchomp, whose Earthquake pairs beautifully with Mega Charizard Y's ground immunity, to finish off most Pokemon capable of tanking Drought fire moves. Additionally, Sun teams thrive on the power of Chlorophyll, a devastating ability that doubles the speed of Pokemon under the sun. By far the most prominent Chlorophyll user is Venusaur, who leverages its game-breaking Sleep Powder to get away with dismantling opposing answers to Sun's offensive fire types. Although the sleep mechanic was nerfed in Pokemon Champions, VGC's explosive nature means that often one turn is all that's needed to end the game. Sun teams frequently utilize diverse speeds of speed control in order to enhance the flames of devastation that the team can easily wield. Most notably, Whimsicott and Talonflame can set up Tailwind in faster variations of the archetype, while partners like Farigiraf, Sinistcha, and Hatterene are powerful Trick Room users that benefit the Torkoal versions of Sun. Although Sun teams are incredibly powerful and arguably the most popular archetype at the moment, they do have weaknesses. The most notorious weakness they face are opposing weathers like sand and rain, but even snow and opposing Sun teams can become complicated with miscalculations. Sand teams particularly enjoy the Sun matchup, as their main weather setter, Tyranitar, can end Charizard and Torkoal's HP bar fairly easily, while simultaneously shrugging off most of their teams. The Weather War, as it is colloquially called by VGC players, means that Sun teams must get creative in order to maintain momentum, and use tools like setting Sun manually through Whimsicott or Talonflame's Sunny Day, or bringing specific answers like the fast fighting type Sneasler to deal with Tyranitar and friends. Sun teams must watch out for rain teams as well, as the debuff to fire damage and a mix of cascading water stabs and hurricanes can be devastating to most Sun compositions. Sun, however, possesses a key advantage in this matchup: Mega Evolution, as there is currently no way in Pokemon Champions to use the Drizzle strategy through Mega Evolutions, which means that rain teams must manually set it or try switching in a Pelipper or Politoed in order to get the ball rolling, turning the matchup into a sort of tower defense where Sun must protect its valuable Charizard asset, or even bring its own manual Sun setters. If a trainer is looking to compete, being well equipped to handle Sun or use its own power is key. Sandstorm. We mentioned sand teams in the previous section, but now we will go more in depth into what many consider the most well-rounded weather strategy of the format. But before we go into the next broken team in Pokemon Champions, don't let cyber thieves break into your cybersecurity with today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. We are all at risk of cybersecurity threats, especially in public spaces. I travel a decent amount, so I'm always working on the go. This means I have to log into my private accounts frequently on public Wi-Fi's, but there could be suspicious people trying to access my sensitive data. That's why I always protect myself with Surfshark VPN, or Virtual Private Network. A virtual private network is a server that you can connect to that encrypts your private data and keeps it safe from others lurking on that network. You can even use this to pretend like you're in another country. Now, why would this come in handy? Well, with streaming services like Netflix, you're often region locked. For example, if I were to vacation in Japan, where there are no subtitles on my anime, I could use Surfshark and change my VPN back to the US or vice versa, and now I have American Netflix wherever I go. You can do this with multiple countries because Surfshark has over 4,500 plus servers in over 140 countries. Surfshark meets all of your cybersecurity needs in one singular program. Also, one subscription lets you log into unlimited devices, and there's no risk in trying Surfshark thanks to their 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you want a sick VPN and also support the channel to help us produce more content, you can click the link in the description below and go to surfshark.com/fallswipe or use code fallswipe at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Sand teams aim to utilize the powerful Sand Stream ability that Tyranitar has in order to set up sand and enable Sand Force, Sand Veil, and Sand Rush sweepers like Escadrille or Garchomp to exert pressure on opposing teams. utilizing the mighty power of Rock Slide and its dreaded flinch power to reduce the opposition to smithereens. Sand teams tend to be on the bulkier side and often employ the service of other bulky Pokemon like Gyarados and Incineroar that enhance the rest of the team's physical defense, along with the comfortable 50% Spadef boost. This defensive profile, along with their natural evasion in the sand, makes sand teams incredibly hard to get rid of. Additionally, sand has the added advantage of Mega Tyranitar being the slowest of all the Mega Weather Setters, ensuring that sand always has a base advantage against every other forecast. This characteristic has made the player base lean heavily into the sand train, as having the weather advantage is never a bad thing in such a dense weather-populated metagame. Sand's bulk and annoying anti-metagame qualities do come at a cost though, as sand is by far the least explosive of all the weather teams, often being paired with more explosive setup sweepers like Como-O and redirection users like Sinistra in order to finish the job once the weather war is won. Sand's main weakness is surprisingly not weather-related, but it is definitely a big piece in competitive VGC. Fighting types, ground types, and Intimidate are almost ubiquitous to competitive doubles, and sand teams tends to struggle when facing off against such Pokemon and abilities. Fighting and ground types tend to pick apart 60 to 80% of sand teams, which means the answers sand brings for those weaknesses tend to be heavily focused in the early game by opposing trainers, clearing the path for some martial arts and seismic activity. Additionally, sand teams tend to be more on the physical side, which means that Intimidate can severely hamper sand's lackluster damage even further. Sand teams love using Pokemon like Milotic, Mamoswine, or Kingambit that can benefit or ignore Intimidation in order to deter Intimidators from even being called into the match. But once again, these sorts of Pokemon struggle as the sole answer to the entirety of another player's team, and their demise often means sand fades to dust. Rain. The rain strategy in VGC is one of the oldest, yet most efficient strategies in VGC, and yet it continues to shine in a metagame such as Pokemon Champions. Rain teams are all about the extremely fast offensive onslaught that water Pokemon can bring to the table, with the boosted damage to stab water moves coming from Swift Swim users like Basculegion. Rain teams often employ several powerful flying and electric type Pokemon that can make use of the enhanced accuracy of devastating moves like Hurricane and Thunder under weather conditions. Despite being the most explosive of the weather strategies in Pokemon Champions, Rain is heavily set back by the quality of the Pokemon available that have the Drizzle ability, Politoed and Pelipper, although both are respectable Pokemon in their own right, with Pelipper even providing valuable team support in the form of Tailwind and Wide Guard, and Politoed having access to the devastating Perish Song. Rain struggles due to the lack of a Mega Evolution user that can set the weather condition. This step is absolutely crucial and the bane of Rain, since Rain teams are often on the back pedal in Weather Wars. Rain teams often employ manual Rain users like Whimsicott and Talonflame, much like the Sun variations do, but not having access to the option means that Drizzle Politoed must be utilized very precisely in order to succeed. This dynamic is Rain's greatest weakness, but its offensive prowess sure makes up for it. Aside from the strong Hurricane users like Mega Dragonite and Pelipper, Rain teams enable extremely potent game-ending sweepers for Pokemon like Archaludon, Last Respect's Basculegion, Mega Greninja, Mega Starmie, Mega Blastoise, and others. Teams that do not engage with the weather dynamic often have a hard time against it and tend to lose rapidly unless they manage to stop the momentum. To further complicate things, type advantages means little when Rain teams have premier redirection in the form of Lightning Rod Raichu to help out with their onslaught, and Hurricanes left and right tend to evaporate most grass types that are standing in their way. Rain teams introduce a KO or be KO'd sort of vibe to the VGC landscape that cannot easily be replicated, and are ideal for any trainer looking to use an aggressive strategy. Snowstorm. Snow is the final weather option available in Pokemon Champions, and it operates in a very different way from the other weather strategies available. The crux of Snow is simple. Set it up via Snow Warning with Mega Frostlass, Abomasnow, or Alolan Ninetales, and then set up Aurora Veil. Although Snow does provide offensive benefits like a perfect accuracy high freeze chance Blizzard, and enables defensive tools like Snow Cloak's evasion and a 50% boost to ice type defense, Aurora Veil is most definitely the star of the show. A 2-in-1 Light Screen plus Reflect reduces damage for the rest of the Pokemon on the team and allows slow setup Pokemon to shine in an otherwise brutal offensive environment that they might not get a chance to live in otherwise. Dragon Dance users particularly enjoy being backed by Aurora Veil and Blizzard, keeping away opposing Dragon types. Other Pokemon such as Kingambit greatly benefit from the bulk increase by pestering the opposition with priority moves while sticking around for long periods of time. Snow is less of a cohesive all-encompassing strategy and more of an offensive tool that deals with opposing weather teams efficiently while powering up allies. Snow's greatest weakness is unfortunately its matchup against the other three weather variations, as they all heavily damage the requisite ice types that are needed for Snow, while denying weather with slower weather Mega Evolution setters. Snow teams also tend to struggle against opposing Wide Guard users, denying most of the payoff for setup sweepers and Blizzard spam. All in all, Snow is a great archetype if you're a player looking for a slower paced, high reward strategy. Trick Room. The Trick Room archetype is a strategy that is also as old as the existence of VGC itself, and one that has endured the passage of time for good reason. Trick Room teams teams attempt to pull off an overwhelming all-or-nothing type of strategy by inverting the speed stats of Pokemon on the field. Trick Room setters such as Farigiraf, Sinistcha, Mimikyu, and several Psychic-type Pokemon like Oranguru and Armarouge are often accompanied by redirection users like Sinistcha, Maushold, Clefable, and Volcarona to divert the brunt of the opposing team's offense in order to ensure getting Trick Room up. Losing one Pokemon for this is often valuable, as Trick Room sweepers are extremely powerful and often quite well suited to take out two Pokemon at the same time. Pokemon such as Torkoal, Armarouge, Mega Drampa, Mega Golurk, Snorlax, Waterspout, Mega Blastoise, Rhyperior, and even Rampardos can wreak havoc easily under Trick Room conditions. Priority moves rarely do much, as most Trick Room sweepers and setters are also incredibly bulky or flat out immune in the case of Farigiraf. Trick Room is the definitive offensive playstyle, but it comes at a cost, as it's also the most telegraphed. Well-prepared teams will often have a way of denying Trick Room in the form of taunt, phasing moves like Roar and Whirlwind, or their own Trick Room setter, Mold Breaker Fake Out, and even powerful spread damage that ignores redirection. This means that Trick Room users must be prepared to play around the multitude of counterplay options available in the format. Should they do it, the payoff is most likely victory. Trick Room teams also have a historically terrible matchup against themselves that usually leads to extremely long games of chicken, where they activate and deactivate Trick Room and try to underspeed and outspeed each other millimetrically. As of the time of writing of this video, full Trick Room isn't one of the most popular archetypes, as it lost several of its traditionally key figures like Amoonguss, who served as redirection and protection in previous metagames, as well as high power figures like Blood Moon and regular Ursaluna. Trick Room, however, is a partial strategy that is often included within weather teams, with many Sun, Sand, and Rain teams having a Trick Room mode, able to face against faster teams with ease. Pokemon that don't usually see much play like Mega Camerupt, Hippowdon, and Primarina often make an appearance with this team style. Partial Trick Room is a devastating strategy that forces opponents to guess from the team preview page and is often a resource advantage in the mental stack. Perish Trap / Explosion Trap. Perish Trap is a complicated but deadly team archetype. It literally does what it says in the name. Perish Trap teams force the opposition into a lockdown via the use of Mega Gengar's Shadow Tag ability and the move Perish Song. This strategy puts the two rival Pokemon on a 3-turn timer that forces them to faint when expired, while pivoting defensive options like Incineroar and Flip-turn Basculegion in order to weaken the blows that Mega Gengar's teams receive. The idea is to force a numerical advantage and then win via inevitability against the last two Pokemon remaining on the opposing side. Such a devastating strategy has been able to win and get far in several tournaments, but it comes at a cost. For one, it is extremely mentally taxing for the Perish Trap player, as one mistake can often lead to defeat in much more catastrophic ways than typical straightforward strategies. Secondly, Perish Trap is amongst the most hated VGC strategies by many of the players, which means that most teams prepare options in order to face them. Pokemon that are immune to Fake Out or Intimidation can often put the pressure on Perish Trap teams, as an essential part of the strategy is debuffing the opposition. Perish Trap teams also struggle with moves like Taunt that can dismantle the strategy before it goes through, and even Pokemon like Como-O with its soundproof ability just naturally beat it. There is, however, a variant to the more traditional Perish Trap, Explosion Trap. The strategy is quite similar to traditional Perish Trap, but it tries to expedite the process by using self-destructing Pokemon like Lumberry Snorlax, Ghost Curse, or Destiny Bond users to take down the opposition and seal the deal with Perish Song against the remaining two. This strategy used to be more powerful in the days of yore, shoutouts to Cordell in Gen 3, but it is still a powerful option that attempts to circumvent the weakness of traditional Perish Trap. A lot of teams, particularly Polytoad versions of Rain, also attempt to incorporate a Perish Song mode, as they can easily overwhelm the starting two Pokemon a rival brings with ease. Perish Trap is definitely one of the strategies to watch out for in the future of the Champions metagame. Good Stuff is perhaps the most open definition of the team archetypes that players can encounter in the Pokemon Champions landscape. The gist of Good Stuff is to prepare for most opposing strategies by bringing a party of 6 that synergize well with each other, covering their weaknesses defensively and offensively, and having a toolbox of options able to deal with most scenarios. Good Stuff teams tend to feature Pokemon that bring great value strategically on their own, like Incineroar with its ability to Fake Out and Intimidate, Mega Meganium with its Mega Soul ability that makes it independent of weather, Palafin Hero who hits like an angry semi-truck, Sneasler who provides Fake Out and status support, Mega Floette who is deceptively tanky and easily the strongest fairy type in the game at the moment, and many similar Pokemon that are a must-answer threats every time they hit the field. Good Stuff teams also tend to employ synergistic strategies like Rotom Levitate plus Earthquake, Tailwind support, standalone weather users like Tyranitar, and well, general good stuff. This type of team variant requires a skilled pilot able to identify and defuse situations before they happen, controlling the pace of the match with its myriad of toolbox options available. Good Stuff teams also make the best use of switching in and out of the game, a luxury that many other VGC strategies cannot afford due to the volatility of the game. The weakness of Good Stuff teams is getting overwhelmed offensively, as they tend to be more on the bulky side rather than the speedy one. This means that hyper-offensive weather strategies like Sun and Rain tend to benefit from their initial pace and deal massive amounts of damage, making a combat particularly hard. Good Stuff teams are usually seen in the later stages of VGC, as most players are still familiarizing themselves with the threats that need to be answered. This sort of team is for you if you're looking for an open-ended, reactive experience and want to feel in control of the match at all times. Gimmicks / unorthodox strategies / random BS Go. This last section of this video will attempt to recap most of the unorthodox strategies that players might encounter here and there. These strategies are known to work through the power of the surprise element and tend to be unreliable, but when they cook, they prepare a feast. Strategies like these include the popular Mega Hulucha entrainment plus one-hit KO moves like Fissure, Sheer Code, Horn Drill, and Guillotine that attempt to give the Hulucha no guard ability to the speedy one-hit KO users in order to get guaranteed kills. Another strategy that is quite similar to that one is the Anger Point strategy, where a Pokemon like Frostlass uses Frost Breath to land a guaranteed critical hit on an Anger Point Pokemon like the Tauros variations in order to quickly go to +6 and end the game on the spot. Other popular strategies that tend to be on the gimmicky side include stacking hazards and stalling via minimize or evasion effects in order to run out the clock in an online battle and win via timer. The amount of variations to moveset and unpredictability is too much to summarize in just one section, but the concept of setting up bizarre sweeps and scenarios in order to secure the victory means that the players must often be on the lookout for suspicious activities on the opponent's side of the field. And as a thank you for your time, we will now provide a graphical cheat sheet that will help with team building for your Pokemon Champions journey. In this cheat sheet, you will be able to reference popular options for specific roles in the team building department and can even use it as a checklist in case you want to use it as a sort of formula in your creative process. We hope that this video has helped you understand the basics of the Pokemon Champions metagame, and we're looking forward to venture in the VGC landscape much more than before at Fall Swipe Gaming. And thank you so much to our Platinum patrons. Thank you to Amphozenus, Alex Sable, Anthony Belval Renault, Daniel Isbeast, Corman, Don Krieg, Eric Dissing, Espion Lover, Funky, Glitcherton, Howl, Jack G, King Yabber, Nightfall, Megamon VGC, Mojo Game Slayer, Nurse Jake, One Penguin to Rule, Pretzel SP, Schmooter, Seagulls Incorporated, Sojiro Sakura, Spavoon, Gylaria, Soras and Croxon, Shiwei Miji, Stoneface Colin, Tyler, Kiboflu, Wardine, Zathor for their major support of our videos.